day, you wake up and realize the woman who once looked at you like you were her entire world now stares at you like a stranger. She's already forgotten. It's not sudden. It's not random. It's the slow bleed of a man who lost his edge. His presence, his frame went without even knowing it. This is why all old men should watch this video, because the years strip away more than your youth. They strip your position in the unspoken. Relationship power dynamics if you let them. In Stoic detachment, there is no bargaining with time, no clinging to what fades. There is only mastery of emotional discipline and a refusal to be ruled by the shifting winds of female psychology. When you no longer have the weapon of youth, all you have left is the weapon of mind. The question is, will you sharpen it or let it rust? Point number 1, the silent decay of masculine frame. Have you ever noticed how a hug can feel different without a single word being spoken? One day it's warm, full, almost clinging to you. Next it's brief, distracted, like she's already somewhere else in her mind. And in that moment, whether you admit it or not, you feel it. The silent test. She's measuring something you can't see, and you don't know if you've passed or failed. That's the cruelty of female psychology in relationships. The most dangerous tests are never announced. They hide in gestures, in tone shifts, in subtle withdrawals. And if you react, if you chase the warmth you think you've lost, you've already handed over the frame. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this and you will find strength." That strength isn't about forcing her to hug you the way she used to. It's about refusing to let the changing texture of her affection dictate your worth as a man. That is masculine control. That is emotional discipline. The Stoics faced similar tests, not in dating, but in survival. A commander might return from battle to the Senate, expecting honor only to be met with cold political silence. No recognition, no warmth. The weak man would beg for it. The disciplined man would stand unmoved, because his value was not for others to grant or take away. That's Stoic detachment. Today, the battlefield is emotional. A man might notice his partner pulling away after learning about his past, or withdrawing intimacy as a way to test his reaction. She's not always conscious of it, but the result is the same, a pressure on your frame. This is where relationship power dynamics are forged or destroyed. If you respond with desperation, you reinforce the idea that your value as a man depends on her approval. If you respond with stillness, you show that your emotional state cannot be manipulated by what you cannot control. The hug is not the battle, your reaction is. The test is not about her arms around you. It's about whether you can stand in silence, accept the shift without flinching, and let her feel the weight of a man who will not be moved. This is where emotional discipline becomes your armor, and Stoic silence becomes your weapon. So here's the challenge. The next time you feel the warmth fade, in a hug, a kiss, a conversation, a pause, let the silence expand. Refuse the bait of insecurity. Remember that a man's frame is not lost in the moment she pulls back, but in the moment he leans forward to fill the space she created. Can you let that space exist without breaking? Because what comes next will reveal whether you've learned to guard your frame, or whether you've been giving it away, one small reaction at a time. And that brings us to the next truth. How comfort erodes your value as a man. Point number 2. How comfort erodes your value as a man. You think she fell in love with your comfort, but she didn't. She fell for your edge, the part of you that didn't need her, the part that made her wonder if she could ever fully have you. Comfort is seductive in the beginning, but over time it turns sharp men dull. You stop leading. You stop challenging yourself. You start explaining yourself more than you should. And in female psychology, the moment she knows exactly where she has you, the silent recalibration begins. The man she once admired for his presence is now just predictable. Seneca once said, "It is not the man who has too little, but the man who craves more that is poor." Craving her constant reassurance is poverty of the mind. You give away masculine control when you start relying on her reactions to confirm your value as a man. Stoic detachment means building your worth on what you control, your discipline, your vision, your boundaries, and not her temporary warmth. The ancient Stoics understood that ease was a trap. A soldier stationed in peace, time still trained, every morning as if war was tomorrow. He sharpened his blade not because there was a visible enemy, but because he knew one day there would be. In modern relationships, the war is against the slow erosion of your standards. Comfort whispers, "You've already won her," and you start skipping the mental training, the self-respect check-ins, The emotional discipline that kept your frame solid in the first place. When comfort takes hold, your leadership turns into negotiation. You stop making decisions with authority and start seeking approval. This shifts the relationship power dynamics. She feels the frame slipping, and whether she realizes it or not, she'll begin to test. She'll pull back to see if you lean forward. She'll disagree just to watch your reaction. And each time you respond with need instead of stillness, you bleed away the respect that once made her follow your lead. Your mission is to treat comfort like a venom, pleasant in taste, deadly in effect. Stay unpredictable in the right ways. Maintain your standards as if the first day never ended. Protect your identity from being swallowed by shared routines. This is not about being cold. It's about ensuring you never let emotional softness replace emotional strength. So here's your challenge. Audit your daily actions. Ask yourself, if she met me today, would I still inspire the same respect? If the answer is no, sharpen your blade, mentally, physically, socially, before you become unrecognizable to yourself. Can you hold your edge while surrounded by comfort? Because what she does when she senses your frame dulling will lead us straight into the next truth. The female psychology behind the late life test. Point number 3. Female psychology and the late life test. One day, without warning, the tests change. When you're young, she tests your ambition, your drive, your ability to protect and provide. But in later years, and when the dust of life has settled, the late life test is quieter, sharper, and far more dangerous. It's not about what you can build anymore. It's about whether you can still command her respect when the shine of youth is gone. And this is where many men fail, because they confuse years together with unconditional loyalty. In female psychology, loyalty is not static. It is constantly remeasured against how you carry yourself in the present. Epictetus once said, "It's not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters." In the late life test, the what happens is subtle, a change in how she looks at you, a colder touch, a sharper tone. The reaction is where your masculine control is truly measured. If you meet it with insecurity, over-explaining, or begging for the old connection, you confirm her unspoken fear that time has softened the man she once respected. The Stoics faced their own version of the late life test. A respected general, after decades of victories, could be sent into political exile. No army, no command, no applause. The question wasn't whether he could win another battle. It was whether he could face obscurity without losing himself. That same battle exists for men today in relationships. When the external advantages fade, looks, novelty, effortless charisma, will you cling to what's gone, or will you stand in stoic detachment, radiating value from the discipline you've built? In modern terms, this is when relationship power dynamics shift. If you've relied on physical attraction or early passion to anchor her respect, the late life test will expose it. If your value as a man comes from your self-governance, your emotional discipline, and your refusal to be ruled by her shifting moods, the test becomes irrelevant because you are not seeking to pass it. Passing it is a side effect of not needing to. Here's the truth few men admit. The late life test isn't about her finding someone better. It's about her sensing whether you've stayed dangerous in the right way, not reckless, but untamed in spirit. The man who still has his own path, his own vision, his own internal edge. When she feels that edge is gone, she may not leave physically, but she will pull away emotionally. Your challenge is to train as if the test is already happening, because it is. Audit your habits, your body, your mind, your social presence. Remove every sign of passive decay. Can you meet her gaze today? With the same unshaken presence you had when she first met you, without pretending to be the man you were. Because next, we'll go to the breaking point. Why reaction hands her all the power. Point number 4. Why reaction hands her all the power. It's never the first test that destroys you. It's the way you react to it. She pulls back and you lean in. She grows cold and you start chasing warmth. She throws out a cutting remark and you rush to defend yourself. At that moment, the frame is gone. In female psychology, reactions are currency. The more you spend, the more she owns the economy of the relationship. And the worst part? She doesn't even have to be aware she's doing it. A single flicker of insecurity in your eyes tells her more than 1,000 reassurances ever could. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events." The instant you react, you've traded that power for the illusion of control. Instead of standing in masculine stillness, You've made her emotions the command center of your own. That's not leadership. That's surrender disguised as connection. The Stoics understood this in war and politics. A rival might bait them with insults in front of the Senate, hoping for an emotional slip that could be used against them. The disciplined man would not respond in kind. He would let the insult hang in the air until it lost all its weight. Modern relationships are no different. Every reactive outburst, every defensive explanation, every attempt to win her back in the moment. These are concessions in the battle for frame. This is where emotional discipline becomes more than theory. Reaction is an untrained mind's reflex. Non-reaction is the result of deliberate training, the pause between stimulus and response where you reclaim your power. When you withhold reaction, you force her to navigate the space you've created instead of rushing to fill it. This flips the relationship power dynamics without a single raised voice. Your value as a man is not proven by how quickly you can fix a shift in her mood. It's proven by how unshaken you remain in its presence. The man who resists the pull to explain himself, to seek reassurance, to prove he's still worthy, that man becomes immovable. And immovable men are magnetic. So here's your challenge. The next time you feel the impulse to react, stop. Count the breath. Let her see that you're not pulled by every emotional tide she stirs. Let her feel the weight of your stillness. Ask yourself, am I leading here or am I following her emotional lead? And if the answer is the latter, you already know what must change. Because once you understand why reaction hands her all the power, you'll see the only counter is the one weapon most men never master. Stoic detachment as your final edge. Point number 5. Stoic detachment as your final edge. There comes a point in every man's life where words, arguments, and constant proving burnout, and all that remains is silence. Not the silence of defeat, but the silence of mastery. This is Stoic detachment. The point where her approval, her moods, and her shifting affections no longer dictate your state. It's not cold. It's control. And in female psychology, nothing is more unsettling or more attractive than a man who does not bend under emotional pressure. Epictetus said, "Freedom is the only worthy goal in life. It is won by disregarding things that lie beyond our control." In relationships, that means this. You don't control whether she stays, whether she feels the same as she did years ago, or whether she tests you until the day you die. You control only your mind, your standards, your direction. That's the final edge. The Stoics trained for loss every day. A father would look at his child in the morning and remind himself, this life is borrowed, not to be cruel, but to prepare his heart for the reality that nothing is truly his. Imagine applying that to love, understanding that her presence is a gift, not a guarantee. When you stop clinging, you stop bleeding power. Modern men fail here because they confuse detachment with disinterest. True Stoic detachment is full engagement without emotional dependency. You lead, you give, you protect, but you never let her reaction dictate your self-worth. When relationship power dynamics shift, the man who has built himself on internal pillars stands tall. The one built on her validation collapses. This detachment is not passive. It's active vigilance over your own mind. It's checking yourself when you feel the urge to over-explain. It's keeping your standards when she pushes against them. It's resisting the temptation to bargain for affection. This is masculine control at its highest form, a steady, unshaken presence that forces her to meet you in your world, not drag you into hers. Your challenge: practice voluntary separation in small moments. The next time she withdraws, don't fill the gap. When she tests, don't rush to prove. Let the moment pass without your frame moving an inch. Feel the discomfort and hold the line. Can you stand so firm that her storms break against you without leaving a mark? Because once you master Stoic detachment as your final edge, the last skill you must claim will be the one that turns quiet power into an unspoken command, and mastering stillness to command respect. Point number 6. Mastering stillness to command respect. Stillness is not the absence of action. It is the presence of control. Most men mistake respect for something they can talk their way into, charm their way into, or negotiate for. But in female psychology, respect is earned when she feels the weight of your restraint. The less you flinch, the more she pays attention. The less you explain, the more she listens. The man who moves only with purpose, who speaks only with intent, becomes impossible to ignore. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "The best revenge is to be unlike him who performed the injury." In modern relationships, the injury isn't always betrayal. Sometimes it's the provocation to break your frame. She tests. She withdraws. She tries to pull you into her storm. Stillness is refusing to match chaos with chaos. It's showing that your emotional discipline is immune to the push and pull. The Stoics mastered stillness in the courts, in war, in politics. A philosopher could stand before a hostile crowd, insults flying, and never break rhythm in his speech. Not because he didn't hear them, but because he refused to let them steer his course. In relationships, that same principle flips the relationship power dynamics. When you remain grounded, her tests lose their power because they no longer reach the man she's trying to provoke. Stillness is a form of masculine control that speaks louder than any argument. It tells her without words that you are not moved by temporary storms, that your value as a man doesn't spike or crash based on her emotional weather. And here's the truth. Stillness is not natural. It's training. It's built through deliberate pauses, resisting the urge to answer every question instantly, holding your tone when your ego is baited. Your challenge, the next time she comes at you with heat, meet it with ice. Not cold detachment meant to punish, but calm presence that shows you will not be moved. Let her feel the tension of a man who doesn't dance on command. This is how stillness becomes a form of dominance, not over her, but over yourself. Because when you master stillness to command respect, you stop chasing it altogether. And that's when she gives it freely, not out of fear, but out of recognition. And once you understand this, the next step is inevitable, transforming that stillness into a complete blueprint for emotional mastery as your exit from every test she could ever throw. In the end, every point we've walked through, the silent test in every hug, the slow erosion of value through comfort, the late life recalibration of respect, the trap of reaction, the razor's edge of stoic detachment, and the unshakable force of stillness, they are not separate lessons. They are one battle fought on many fronts. The battle to keep your frame intact in a world that will test it until your last breath. Most men lose that battle not because they're weak, but because they don't see it happening. They mistake affection for security. They mistake years together for loyalty. They mistake explaining themselves for leadership. And by the time they realize what's been slipping away, their presence is no longer felt, even in the room they're standing in. The Stoic doesn't wait for that day. He trains now. He treats every moment of withdrawal, every small test, every flicker of disrespect as a chance to sharpen his edge. He refuses to give his emotions away for free. He understands that respect is not begged for, and love is not held through desperation. His power lies in mastery of himself, not control over her. So here's the final truth. In the war of relationship power dynamics, you are either the man who sets the frame or the man who adapts to hers. One leads, one follows. Which are you? If this message cuts deeper than the surface, then you're exactly the kind of man this channel was built for. Subscribe to Stoic Truth, because here, we strip away the illusions and hand you the tools to walk through every test of unshaken, untouchable, and undeniable. The test won't stop, but neither will you.